So it's hard to keep track. Donald Trump said a lot of things about tariffs over the past week. Let's hear some of it.
Of our trade deficit with China, and unless we solve that problem, I'm not going to make a deal. China's paid almost $700 billion in tariffs under me. As I told them, if you retaliate, we're going to double it. And that's what I did with China, because they did retaliate. We'll see what happens with China. We would love to be able to work a deal. They've really taken advantage of our country for a long period of time.
All right, so you hear that? Hanging tough there.
Oh yeah.
Our George Soros's protege who crashed the British pound. I thought we all hate George Soros. It's so weird that the Treasury Secretary is George Soros's golden boy, and none of the MAGA folks seem to be upset about that. None of them screamed, "Oh, the fix is in," when they picked George Soros's right-hand man, the guy who crashed the British pound. But let's see what he had to say.
Escalation, unfortunately, the biggest offender in the global trading system is China, and they're the only country who's escalated. And I can tell the rest of the world that I'm not sure whether it was the prime minister or the economic minister in Spain made some comments this morning. Oh, well, maybe we should align ourselves more with China. That would be cutting your own throat, because I can tell you that these Chinese exports that the U.S. tariff wall is going to keep out, that China, for all of you who can remember that Disney movie of the brooms carrying the buckets of water, that is a Chinese business model. It never stops. They just keep producing and producing and dumping, and it's going somewhere. And I think, Rob, at the end of the day, that we can probably reach a deal with our allies, with the other countries that have been long-term. They've been good military allies, not perfect economic allies, and then we can approach China as a group.
All right. So essentially what he's saying is China is like a manufacturing shark that has to keep swimming to survive. And those European countries would be foolish not to block their goods, because if they can't send them into the United States, they're going to dump them on your markets and destroy your industries. So get together with us and we'll all block Chinese goods, and we'll have essentially our own economic zone. It looks like this is what they're aiming at. Now, the Chinese minister has been pretty fiery in his responses. This is their representative from the Chinese Foreign Ministry. Basically, they're Matthew Miller, but not vampiric at all.
Right.
It's like a based Matthew Miller, what they have.
Yeah.
China has repeatedly stated its solemn position on the tariff issue. Tariff and trade wars have no winner. China does not want to fight these wars, but is not scared of them. Let me stress that if the U.S. truly wants to resolve the issue through dialogue and negotiation, it should stop maximum pressure and capricious and destructive behavior. This never works with China. For any dialogue to happen, they must be based on equality, respect, and mutual benefit. If the U.S. is determined to fight a tariff and trade war, China's response will continue to the end. China is a responsible country. We've taken countermeasures against the bullying behavior of the U.S., not only to safeguard our legitimate rights and interests, but also to uphold international rules and order, the common interests of countries in the world, and international fairness and justice. In the face of U.S. hegemony and bullying, remember this: give the bully an inch, he will take a mile. That's the line that really made the headlines. So, hey, the Chinese are not backing down. There's a lot of reporting that after Trump's first term and those tariffs, they took a lot of measures to prepare for an eventuality like this so that they could ride it out. And lo and behold, these tariffs were permanent until they weren't.
President Trump making a major reversal. His administration exempting smartphones, computers, and other electronics from his latest round of tariffs. A massive reprieve for tech companies and consumers amid fears that Trump's 145% tariffs on all Chinese goods would send prices of key products skyrocketing. Many consumers had been rushing to buy new iPhones before this late-night Friday announcement. The majority of Apple iPhones are assembled in China. But just 1 week ago, Secretary of Commerce Howard Lutnick claimed iPhones could be made in the USA.
The army of millions and millions of human beings screwing in little screws to make iPhones, that kind of thing is going to come to America.
But the relief may be short-lived. Trump has said he could still impose other targeted tariffs on some of these exempted products. And Trump's previous tariffs, including its 20% import taxes on Chinese goods as punishment for the U.S. fentanyl crisis, still apply. The White House saying tonight that America cannot rely on China to manufacture critical technologies such as semiconductors, chips, smartphones, and laptops. Trump's latest tariff U-turn coming amid warning signs in the bond markets, traditionally a safe haven investment during stock market volatility. The escalating U.S.-China trade war putting investors on edge.
The bond market is basically telling us that the world is now not confident in what we are doing and where we're going to be in the future.
Trump dismissing those concerns.
The bond market's going good. We had a little moment, but
Got a little yippee.
solved that problem.
Got a little yippee.
China, meanwhile, retaliating with 125% tariffs on all American products, going into effect today. The move, a blow to American farmers. China imports more soybeans from the U.S. than any other country.
All it's doing is hurting the U.S. farmer here.
And American small businesses also feeling the squeeze.
Well, this definitely affects my bottom line. I mean, right now, we're going to make very little money.
Selena Wang joining us now from.
All right. So we do have some exclusive footage of Lutnick and Donald Trump at the White House. Apparently, Donald was very angry. They all promised him this would work. So this is what he had to say.
We can't let him get away with that.
What was I supposed to do? Call him for cheating better than me in front of the others?
Yeah, see, Trump is in a tough spot there. He can't call out the Chinese for cheating better than America does. He tried his tariffs. They did not work out. Now, Howard Lutnick, I got to say, I don't know if they know he's going to say these things. It seems to me that he's becoming a public relations nightmare for them. So this was just today. He said this.
Saying that the big tariffs on things like smartphones and laptops, iPhones, all those iPhones built in China, that those tariffs are temporarily off, but they're going to be coming right back on in another form in a month or so? Or what are you saying?
Correct. That's right. That's right. Semiconductors and pharmaceuticals will have a tariff model in order to encourage them to reshore, to be built in America. We need our medicines and we need semiconductors and our electronics to be built in America. We can't be beholden and rely upon foreign countries for fundamental things that we need. We can't be relying on China for fundamental things that we need. Our medicines and our semiconductors need to be built in America. Donald Trump is on it. He's calling that out. So you should understand these are included in the semiconductor tariffs that are coming and the pharmaceuticals are coming. Those two areas are coming in the next month or two. So this is not like a permanent sort of exemption. He's just clarifying that these are not available to be negotiated away by countries. These are things that are national security that we need to be made in America.
The president's made it.
All right, you got it. So we're going to tariff China, and they better not retaliate, except if they do retaliate.
Right.
And then we're going to remove most of the tariffs, but not all of the tariffs. Not the tariffs that are going to destroy small businesses with like toy stores in local regions, but if it's going to mess up Apple and all of these guys, well, we'll take those tariffs off. People are going to get very mad if their smartphones get expensive, but we're going to leave some of the tariffs on. We're going to leave some of the port fees on. But no, actually, we're going to add all the tariffs back on. This is just a temporary pause. Okay, this is terrible for business at every level because who's going to invest? Who's going to take any chances? If you've ever run a business, when you expand, it's a risk, right? You're taking that money, you're putting it up, you're assuming it's going to work out, you're assuming you're going to make profit off that. Who's going to do that right now? Nobody knows what anything is going to cost from week to week. Now, this fantasy that he has, that you're just going to wave a magic wand and they're going to start making iPhones in the United States. What he's saying is true. It is a security issue to not be able to build things in the United States, but you can't just solve that with tariffs. You have to build a workforce. You have to build out that infrastructure. It's something that takes time and policy. Here's Tim Cook explaining why they're not going to be building iPhones in the United States if you put 500% tariffs on China.
Confusion about China, and let me at least give you my opinion. The popular conception is that companies come to China because of low labor cost. I'm not sure what part of China they go to, but the truth is China stopped being the low labor cost country many years ago. The reason is because of the skill, the quantity of skill in one location, and the type of skill it is. Like the products we do require really advanced tooling, and the precision that you have to have in tooling and working with the materials that we do are state of the art. And the tooling skill is very deep here. In the US, you could have a meeting of tooling engineers and I'm not sure we could fill the room. In China, you could fill multiple football fields. It's that vocational expertise is very deep, very, very deep here.
They don't have cheese doodle dust under their fingernails. That's a big plus, too.
They don't stick gum under the machines.
They don't spill Dr. Pepper on the iPhones when they're putting them together.
We don't have to build the aisles double wide to get our workforce in. All right. When I was a kid, Keaton's too young to remember this. Some of the older folks in the chat, the Xers and up, will remember this. When I was a kid, made in China was a punchline. Like if something broke, oh, what was that, made in China? Because America had a century of manufacturing experience and had a workforce that had the kinds of fine skills for that era that Tim Cook is describing. And at that time, China believe it or not, Japan was the same joke. Wait, was that made in Japan? Now, that went away before the Made in China thing did, because by the 80s, they showed they had mastered that game. But it took them decades of having generations learn how to do this kind of relatively skilled manufacturing. We're 2 generations removed from having a lot of manufacturing in the United States. That's what Tim Cook is saying. China has these people because they took over manufacturing. Now they've cultivated people who know how to do this, who have these skills. You could bring the factory here. You don't have the people who know how to do this. You're not just going to reverse half a century of mismanaged industrial policy with tariffs. To really approach this problem, you'd have to put probably trillions of dollars into retraining the workforce and building the facilities. In other words, it would take something that these fanatically free market trickle down economics people don't like the idea of. Government intervention. Right. It would take a lot of government. And you know how you'd have to pay for it? You'd have to tax Donald Trump's rich criminal friends to pay for it. This is a way of trying to do this according to almost a religious belief that the free market can solve these kinds of problems without any government intervention. You know, this is, and this is the irony. They talk about how China has the government subsidizing these industries. So you're kind of conceding that what China did worked, right?
Right.
They
Of
have
course.
all
Well,
these
yeah.
businesses because they supported them. They're accepting this idea that the government has to support industry, but they want to do it without any money. They want to get somebody else to pay the bill. And of course, tariffs, in the end, the country exporting does not pay these tariffs. The consumer does. The business importing it does. They don't pay tariffs. So China responded to the rollback here. China's Commerce Ministry, the based Commerce Ministry, called the U.S. tariff exemptions a small step and urged U.S. President Donald Trump to completely abolish the reciprocal tariffs, which include a 145% duty on imports from China. Quote, "We urge the U.S. to heed the rational voices of the international community and domestic parties, take a big stride in correcting its mistakes, completely abolish the wrongful action of reciprocal tariffs, and return to the correct path of resolving differences through equal dialogue based on mutual respect," the ministry said in an online statement, according to a CNBC translation. The ministry also said China is evaluating the relevant impact of the tariff exemptions on some tech products announced late Friday. The response in China to U.S. tariffs can be seen in both state media and social media. The recent exemptions are being presented domestically as Trump is backing down, and further evidence that Chinese supply chains are not easily replaceable by U.S. companies. Quote, "Public opinion widely views this as another retreat by the U.S. government on its tariff policies," the official Beijing Daily wrote. On China's popular social media platform Weibo, the hashtag Trump administration retreats again ranked number 2 on the hot search list. During the week, we were going to do it today, but we'll do it during the week, a story about how this is impacting small businesses, supply chains, and so on. They mentioned in the report the bond market. I took a look at it before the show. Yeah, the bond market 10-year yield is hovering around 4.5. For anyone unfamiliar, the rates are inverse to demand. When the rates are going up on bonds, it means they're not in demand, so they have to give you more interest to get you to buy the bonds. Now, Gasparino on Fox said his sources are telling him these bonds are not actually being dumped by China, they're being dumped by Japan. Gold prices are spiking, and the dollar is losing value, which, as we covered in another segment, may be part of Trump's overall strategy, but it's a strategy that doesn't make any sense in a context where you're driving people to throw tariffs up so that even if you weaken the dollar, our exports are still not going to be attractive. The reason this is so alarming is normally if the stock market is scaring people this way, U.S. treasuries, the U.S. dollar is seen as the safest haven. The fact that gold is spiking like that at the same time that treasury rates are spiking, that tells you that people are starting to disinvest from America as not necessarily a safe place to park their money. They're moving it into gold. That could blow up the entire premise of the American economy. Now, you want to say that would have happened eventually anyway because it was built on sand. Yeah, maybe. It's going to happen at a very accelerated pace if we continue down this path.
Yep. Another tremendous victory for glorious China. Another humiliating defeat for the illegitimate scum West. That's what it looks like to me. Yes. Well, long story short, hey, we were a little hesitant to do those gold ad reads, but hey, if you're still interested, we'll reconsider now. I guess it's looking pretty good.
I
It's
guess
looking pretty good.
that must be paying real well now.
Yeah, it's looking pretty good. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. No. Look, this is when did this whole thing start? April 2nd. So
April
in
2nd was Liberation Day.
Liberation Day was April 2nd. Since then, we have caved twice. This is what I mean. It's too late to do this. We can't do this. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. The guy there, based Matt Miller, there. Does he look like he's holding a pair of twos? No. I think they feel pretty good about where they're at for good reason. For good reason. I mean, tech. I'm not saying that's Corinthians too. It's not the whole ball game, but that's a huge concession for what 11 days in after we've already blinked once.
Basically, what they are trying to do, theoretically, based on some pretty solid reporting on it, what they're trying to do is essentially shift the basis of the economy back to manufacturing by using tariffs. And they want to wean the economy off having the dollar in the position that it's been in, where it's the strongest currency and the default reserve asset, but is trying to offset that by bullying certain countries into maintaining the dollar as their reserve. It's a cockamamie scheme with so many moving parts. One of the problems with tariffs is the unpredictability of the consequences of tariffs. It almost never works out. Now you're going to add in this entire factor of trying to go back to the Bretton Woods system and force countries, which also is never a good idea. When you force people into being subservient to you, they're always just waiting for a moment to cut your throat. I mean, frankly, I think they're trying to do this, and by doing it, opening up that moment for a lot of countries that have wanted to get rid of us for a long time. I think we're making it easy for them.
Yes, I agree.
Please clap.